part of this whole process, it's been therapeutic. Like
Mm.
it's been, um, this process of me going back through those times in my life and really having an opportunity to examine them on a really personal level and, realize a lot of things that I don't think I realized before,
Mm.
about, I was hard on a lot of people around me, especially my ex-wife and, my training partners, I was hard on, of course, but,
Mm.
it's like this, I was trying to create something that didn't exist at the time. Nobody really knew what a professional mixed martial artist looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. you know, I the part of me was this naive, because here's what I didn't understand, and this is a kind of a shrewd example, but so right, uh right, that was involved with Pride. He would have me come over a few days prior to everybody else so he could hang out with me. We had dinners together and
Mm.
stuff like that. So I had a couple different contracts with him, and then a couple different contracts with KRS Dream Stage and so on. And so one of the contracts I had covered the Hugo Duarte fight.
Mm.
And with the Hugo Duarte fight, um, there was a section that was set aside for, I had a list. I said, if I fought anybody on this list, A list, right, I would get this bonus. If any fought anybody on this B list, here's my bonus. C list, here's my bonus. And I put it in the contract as an addendum. Never signed it. And
Mm.
so after I fought Hugo Duarte, I go up the next day to get paid, and they hand me my pay, and I push it back across the table, and I said, it's not right. Right.
Mm.
And so it was one of the handlers. It wasn't. And so I go, it's not right. And I push it back, and I don't sign off on the contract,
Mm.
or the payment. And so I go back down to my hotel room. I get a call like within 10 minutes of me being in my hotel room. And they're saying, you need to come back up to the pay room.
Mm.
I go back up to the pay room, is there. And he just says through the interpreter, he says, I'm going to say this once.
Yeah.
If you don't take this pay, you'll never work in Japan again. That was so bad. It was so, oh my God, you have to have a palate. You have to have a taste for it. It was like fish with bone in it. And it was sitting on the floor, which is so uncomfortable for me. And that was like one of the ones where I'm like, oh, I should have just faked it. I should have just said, oh my God, this is the best food in the world. But it wasn't my palate. It wasn't what I'm normally used to eating.
Mm.
And so it was like, oh my gosh, that was so bad. I remember. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that was so bad.
But
That was so bad. Yeah. Well, put it this way. When I first started talking to them, it was way back in 2019,
Mhm.
and that was when everything started. And and obviously it was July 2019 that I got contacted by William Morris, the agency that represents Dwayne,
Mhm.
and said, they said, where do you know where your life rights are? Do you know where the movie script is? I'm like, I said, I don't know. I didn't know where all that stuff ended up. It was actually sold back in 2006. And
Mhm.
it's just one where I figured it would take them months and months and months to figure out who had it, and then months and months and months to put together a contract to purchase it and all this stuff. And within less than a month, I get a call back from William Morris, and they're like, hey, we got your rights. Dwayne Johnson's production company, $7 bought it, and we're going to produce it. Dwayne's going to call you over, and it literally happened like that. Oh boy, man. There's a couple moments in there, like at the beginning when Dwayne's talking to the kids in the waiting room, doctor's waiting room, and it's just that like that really happened. Like I really did have a conversation with a housewife who's looking at me with my face all battered up and looking, and you can feel her staring at me the whole time I'm sitting there. So it almost like instantly I need to engage with her and explain to her like, hey, this is just from this thing that I do, and it's not, like that moment. Oof. At the end, I didn't realize how choked up I would get when Benny asked me to be in it, and in that moment when I saw myself, and I felt the reaction, like especially in the theater with everything that I went through, and felt the reaction of the crowd, and just like this thing that Benny had, where all of that chaos that I went through, and all of that trials and tribulations, and then then he's here, like instantly I'm here, and I'm okay. And I think that was kind of one of the other parts where I just cherish. So it's gotten better. It's gotten better. I think there was a period of time where I just couldn't. Here's what was difficult for me. Um, like when you do something for the majority of your life at the time, right? I competed in wrestling and then moved into mixed martial arts, and it occupied such a big space in my life for so long. When that's not there, it's difficult for me to figure out like who I am, right? And so part of the struggle that I went through, and I say this, I've said it before, is, you know, what I didn't understand is fighting is what I did. It's not who I am. And trying to understand that psychologically, when you spend the majority of your life doing it, it becomes such a part of you that without that identity, it really was difficult for me. And so it's taken me a lot of time to kind of sort things out. And I said this to Dwayne when I got inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. I said, I didn't know that I still had a hole in me. I like had a hole that I didn't know I had in me, because I had resolved that no matter what happens, if the sport never acknowledges me and never remembers me, I have to be okay with that too. And for them to acknowledge me in that way, it brings me to tears because it was just so powerful. Um, I hope to. I thought about this a lot of times when they said, "Hey, listen, this will be released in Japan in May," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, wow!" So my whole idea would be, and it would be a welcome home, to a culture and to a country that embraced me, and they literally made me their hero.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. You know, Oh boy, this is because I could spend 20 minutes talking about how thankful I am. Here's what I do know is that the Japanese fans embraced me. They loved me. They cheered for me, and I fought for them. And there's a time where I need to come home for a bit, and that's going to be the next visit.